episode 6 of the Sugar Skulls Show podcast. Shane and Erin share their top 5 horror movie lists. Let's get started. Okay, so we'll just kick into it here. Let me bring up the list.
I know. I was like, oh shoot, I need my list at least. I'm gonna write down your list too. Okay. I really enjoyed the Howling. I knew I would. It's been on my list for a long time.
You've never seen the Howling before, or
no? That was the only one that I hadn't seen on your list.
Okay.
And so, but it's been on my list. I'm a fan of werewolf movies, so like it was just I hadn't gotten to it yet.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I would have gotten to it eventually, but it was a good movie. It was not what I was expecting.
Yeah, and I will say of the sequels, there's no remake that's better.
Yeah, that's usually pretty common.
They went pretty much downhill after that. One of the Scream Queens is in it. I'm trying to remember what her name is.
Dee Wallace?
Very tall blonde lady. Can't remember.
I mean, that could be. Is she from the original?
Nope. No.
Oh, then it's not Dee Wallace then. Okay.
No. This one is, she's in a bunch of them, like Barbarian Women from Mars or something like, you know what I mean, just.
Oh, she was just a really big built woman.
Well, like, she's in a lot of the horror movies and stuff like that, but. So let's look at the list.
Yeah. So how do you want to go back and forth, or do you want to discuss like your 5, then my 5? Do you have a plan there?
Let's go. We'll just do we'll do kind of a back and forth.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, so one of the other things I had thought about is what kind of rating scale would you put these on, right? Like if you were gonna say visual effects, makeup, break them down into that story. You know what I mean? Like even in the sequels, right? Like Chucky, right? The Bride of Chucky. You had Seed of Chucky, which I know why you picked that one. That one's where that one. It's very gender affirming. It's very like
it is.
Yeah, it's got a lot.
I didn't know that. I really did not know that. It was so ahead of its time.
Yeah, it's really well. The director, he announced, you know what I mean? Like he came out and said that he was gay, and so after I watched it, I was like, man, I haven't seen this one in a while.
Yeah.
So then I watched it, and then I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff of them making it, and there's a full interview of him, and he's like, yeah, it turns into people wanted a comedy and that kind of stuff. So let's start with. It's because mine are more of like everybody's scared of those, I think.
Yeah, mine are really specific.
Yeah,
and
yours
also, like mine aren't necessarily like. I was scared of not scared of 3 of them, but 3 of them are scarier than 2 of them.
All right.
Like one of them is a horror comedy, and Behind the Mask is kind of a horror comedy too.
Right.
So you know, mine are a little bit more skewed toward not scary.
But I think,
but Blair was pretty scary.
Yeah. Well, I think mine worked on people's more on their psychological fears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they had, you know, whether you have a fear of the water or whether you have a fear of, the dark or ghosts or supernatural or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was, so let's go ahead. I'll start with my number 1, and that is The Exorcist. Okay. So, what? I'll let you go first. What's your take on The Exorcist?
My take is that I like the book a lot more. I loved the book.
Okay.
And I have seen The Exorcist a couple times, like a fair amount of times, a few times, and I've watched like there's a Cursed Films episode on Shudder about The Exorcist, and I liked the book's approach way better. I'm not that big of a fan of the movie, to be honest with you. but the book is more like procedural. It's more like, is this a hoax? Is this real? How can we help this girl and mother kind of thing? But the movie goes more like scare factor. And even so, the pacing is really slow. Like, I think if I had seen it when I was a bit younger, I would have been maybe more scared of it. But I saw it like as an adult, probably in my early 20s. So it didn't really freak me out. Just, I think because of the modern horror I had already seen up until that point, you know?
Right. Well, and yeah, that I will say that timing for that movie does count.
It
As I
does,
saw it when
yeah.
I was like 5, and then you know, so my parents' approach on horror movies was, you can't watch this. It's way too scary, right?
Yeah.
Now that same rating was for The Howling and for The Exorcist, which I think The
Hmm.
Exorcist is way more traumatizing than The Howling is.
I don't know, man. I watched The Howling an hour ago.
Yeah.
Like, the effects in that are pretty traumatizing. I don't know. There's more crazy shit going on in The Howling than The Exorcist, in my opinion. I think.
I guess maybe it's the take of the werewolf movie versus just something that, well, and something that you kind of, your parents could say, this is real. This is based on a real story. This is, you know what I mean, like, don't mess with this,
Hmm.
because, you know, if you mess with this type of spiritual thing, like my mom is very spiritual. She's got crystals everywhere. She's got, you know, well, the book that I scanned for you, um,
Yes.
I mean, she's very, very, very spiritual in that sense. But then the men on my side of my family are very soldier based, right? Like, suck it up, Buttercup. You better get out there and do what you need to. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Don't let
Hmm.
something hold you back. So, yeah. So, and then I think it's just the voices, right? I think the voice
Mm.
is really what gets me the most on that movie. Is like, I could not even see the now, I'll say this, the visual effects on that one. I'm going to say that one, for the time and for what, for what it is, uh, messed me up. But
Yeah.
now when I look at it, I'm like, that looks really bad. You know what I mean? That's just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, her head spinning, that doesn't look anything human. That doesn't, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's not groundbreaking at all.
Effects have come a long way. And so
Yeah.
the time that it came out really does matter for some of those older films.
Right. Yeah. Well, and as you said, like with, we'll jump to the Howling. That's the Howling and the American Werewolf in London. Those effects were like, whoa, the dude's hand is like
Yeah.
stretching out and turning into, you know, he's
Yeah.
really metamorphosing into a werewolf. Um, Now, okay, so we'll jump to. Uh, so let's see, one more thing on The Exorcist. So, like, there are sequels to The Exorcist. What have
Mm.
you seen any of the sequels? What did you think about the lineage of what went on? Because it kind of went. I think The Exorcist kind of went off. You know what I mean? Like, they just were like, okay, so now, you know, Blair is this good. You know what I mean? Like, she like it just changed the whole story at one point.
Hmm.
So,
I will say I think that the second one, I've never seen the second one, because I kind of heard it was terrible. It was kind of just a cash cow. They wanted
mm,
to, just makes a few cheap bucks because the first one was so successful. But the third one, I like standalone. It's one of probably my favorite films
okay,
of all time.
okay,
I adore the third one. I love that it goes back to like the books again because I'm a fan of the books.
yeah,
So the third one goes back to the Gemini killer story and the demon that possessed the girl and the priest. And I personally, The Exorcist 3 is one of my favorite films. Just
okay,
period.
okay,
I really enjoyed that one. And somebody turned me on to it like 2 years ago maybe, and they were like, "Screw that second one. Just go watch the third one. You don't need the second one. Don't worry about it.
yeah,
Just watch the third one. It's all you need to know." And I agree. I agree. I don't know. Are there any more than that than the third one? If there are, I
Well, I
haven't
know
seen them.
there's like a TV series
Oh. Hmm.
and a
And there
few.
was a newer film too
Yeah, there was a newer
that came out
film
like a
that,
year
yeah,
ago.
I think that one in there. There's two girls in that one or something like that. But
Yeah, I
which I
didn't
did
see
not
the
see that
the.
one yet. I haven't seen that one yet. I've been,
I heard it wasn't very good, so I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not quick to waste my time.
to,
So if I've heard it's not very good, chances are I'm not going to go out of my way to
right,
watch it. You
yeah,
know.
okay, okay, all right. So we'll jump to what about Cabin in the Woods? Um,
Yeah.
to me, I when I saw it and when I just recently rewatched it. To me,
Hmm.
it's like here's corporate America. You know what I mean? Like messing with the fate of the world kind of deal. Um, and here's corporate America trying to uh, make money off of a horror industry, right? Because to me,
Hmm.
all the monsters in their rooms in that are, if you take this path, well, you're going to end up with this monster. You know, what I mean,
Hmm.
they just happened to take this other path and ended up with what they got. So I was kind of like, well, yeah. To me, that it feels like a corporate America, but then it's almost like when the two get down into the facility and
Hmm.
all the monsters get let loose. To me, that's kind of like the little guy winning. I guess winning in the end, even though everybody dies. But
Yeah.
it's a little bit into that effect. Effects wise, yeah, I loved the monsters, loved what they did with everything, especially the kid with like all the teeth that turned around
Hmm.
with a face full of teeth. Um,
Yeah, like the little ballerina with like the whole
yes,
face of teeth.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
there are some really cool creature creations in
yeah.
that one,
That one
and
was like
I'm
a
a I'm such a big fan. And like the not pinhead guy with
yes,
like all the saws stuck in his
right,
face.
yeah, exactly,
Oh, so
yeah. It was
and I
kind of
love that.
well, and I felt like it was kind of like okay, here's what Hollywood and corporate Hollywood are they're trying to capitalize on the one good one, right? Or the one that really scared them. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like with mine, I would say one, two, three, four, and five. All of my five have sequels. They have lineages behind
Mm.
them, right? Um,
Yeah.
so what's your biggest like this movie was made it to my list for Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah. And I would say like the rest, so I sent these 5 to you and I was like not really any particular order. I will say Cabin in the Woods is a clear one for me, but the rest are kind of like Cabin in the Woods has always been a standout for me. So I'll go ahead and say like Cabin in the Woods really was my one, but the rest kind of stand together, honestly. But Cabin in the Woods when it came out, I think it's 2011, maybe 2012. I don't remember now. But man, I think I saw this in theaters and it blew me away. That was the new pinnacle of like camp horror comedy for me. Because I'm such a fan of I don't like, and a lot of people are gonna like disagree with this, but personally for me, I don't like horror that's too serious. It's too I don't know. I think I'm too empathetic. I end up kind of feeling sick to my stomach sometimes, depending on the content itself. So I like a little comic relief in my horror, and I think all of the 5 on my list kind of have that, and that's it kind of is that same trajectory through all my favorite movies. But I
Which
love the horror comedies, and
yeah,
the
I really
tone just hit it right on the head for me.
yeah, I think Sam Raimi really pulled that core horror comedy in, right? Like I know Evil Dead's not on either one of our lists, but
Right.
I think that's where that really came from was
Hmm.
we can add this in. Um, okay, so speaking of super serious, um, Aliens. That one to me was the like so intense. Like that's the fear of the dark one, right? That's the one.
Game over, man.
Yeah,
Iconic.
yes.
It's iconic.
And especially the first one, right? Because you never really get a full like view of the whole creature in the first one.
I mean, you do just briefly at the end.
But still, it's very.
You do at the end,
I think it's
and
still
it's
very
when
dark.
it's like he's
Yeah,
already pushed it out of
and
the
he's kind
hole
of
and it's
like he's
flying
kind of
away.
like snaking his way, around in that little pod with her. Um, but but I mean, nothing like the Queen, right? Well, like when you see the Queen,
Right.
you're like, well, oh wow, these things are crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
but that one is, I think Aliens is how can we incorporate two fears at once? That is aliens. What are we going to run into when we go into outer space, right? And then the second one is just like I said, a fear of the dark. You know what I mean? Because that thing is it's in the dark most of the time. And how the cat survives, I don't know.
Listen, they're smart. They're smarter than all of us. Well, most of them
Because
are anyway.
I've thought about that, right? Like, okay, if really the apocalypse happens, right? What am I going to do with my cat? I don't, you know what I mean? Like, we could get we could get like those bubble backpacks, but good luck. Good luck in putting that cat in that bubble backpack. Not Sam.
Sean would be the same way. Sean and Sam would be fighting for their lives just to get out of that bubble backpack.
We're like, you're going to be saved in the bubble backpack. If you keep resisting, you're just going to get eaten by zombies or whatever it is that comes. But
eventually they'd figure that out. They'd be like, okay, that person over there is danger. But I think it would take them getting into a close call before they figured it out.
I'm pretty sure if Sam smelled some kind of food, he'd be like, "Hey, how you doing?" You know, he's not.
What you got there?
What's going on? Hey, I think I smell treats.
Jonesy is clearly smarter than both of our cats. I agree. I think Jonesy is just smart cat.
Smart cat. Yeah. Like, yeah. And then
I love Aliens, to be honest. That was the first Alien movie I saw. I saw Aliens before the original. It's not my favorite of the franchise, but I do adore Aliens. Okay. It's probably my second favorite.
All right. Yeah. Well, because it's our fight back, right? Like the first one is how do we escape, right? The second, and then Aliens is, okay, we're going to go kick these things' butts. We're going to kick their asses, right? We're going to blow them up. We're going to save everybody, which they don't, but
yeah, they try.
They tried.
I see memes all the time about, these movies are a great example of what happens when you don't listen to smart women. Just listen to the smart women. They know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Ripley is, I named my computer after Ripley. She's one of my favorite heroines in horror.
And she is like somebody was arguing about some kind of, it was some movie where Hollywood had flipped a cast from the gender flip, right? And they were, the star was saying, well, it's, this is he's just sexist against these, the non-damsel in distress. And I disagree, the Aliens and Alien and Ripley, truthfully, is like the perfect, like, if you're a male macho dude, that is the character. You know what I mean? She doesn't make any bad mistakes whatsoever. Like, none of her choices are bad. She's like telling people, hey, look, if you put this alien, you can be breeding these aliens. I think, what was that, 3? Was that Alien 3? Where they were actually trying to breed the aliens. They had cloned her back.
That's number 4.
Is that 4? Okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. I love Alien Resurrection.
Resurrection. Yes.
I don't know why.
Yes.
But it's because it's campier.
It's her going toe to toe, right? Like, it's like, okay, she's got some, she's got some enhancements now that she can actually fight these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the same with what was the other one? There was so there's Ripley, and then there's another one. Jamie Lee Curtis in
Oh yeah.
Halloween, right? She kind
Mm-hmm.
of always like she's like, hey, this dude's unstoppable, can't stop. You know what I mean? I think the
And nobody
doctor,
wants to listen.
nobody wants to listen to it. No, no. Call the police, and the police are like, oh, we'll go in there and we'll take care of this guy. And what happens? You know, he ends up killing all the police. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's where I think Aliens is like of those. Even with the Prometheus and all that kind of stuff, I do like Prometheus because it expands on the story as to how did they even get there, right? How did that whole thing come about? And a little
Yeah, I
bit
made the
into
mistake of. Oh, go ahead.
and a little bit into like how did we get here, right? Like
Right.
the engineers, they started our species, I guess, right? And I don't know if you've seen any of the back behind stuff that got cut that hit the floor.
Yeah.
But when that alien, when the engineer is brought back to out of stasis, first thing he
Mm-hmm.
says is, you know, we gave you a perfect being, referring to, and a lot of people think they're referring to Jesus. We gave you a perfect being, and you sacrificed him, and you know what I mean. And that's when he starts
Mm-hmm.
killing all those people. Anyways,
But yeah, I made the mistake of seeing Prometheus in theaters very late at night. And so by the time the scene comes around
you're out of
with
here.
Numi in
Yeah.
the machine, uh it was very late at night and I was just sitting there like, "Oh my God, I can't, like it hurts." like like that surgery and the little the medical pod thing. Oh God, watching that at like 2 o'clock in the morning in a theater is an experience I want to forget, but I can't. Needless to say, I don't go to the theater much anymore. I don't like to take chances like that.
Well, then there's questions. What were you doing at theater at 2:30 at night?
Well, it was opening night.
Oh, so they had
So it
done
was
a
they do
midnight
the
release or something.
yep, we went
Okay.
on the night, like the Thursday night at midnight kind of thing. And then they started doing after that, they started doing releases like Thursday night at like 7, 8 p.m. So then we started going to those for opening nights, but at the time it was still much later in the evening. So I think it was like 11. I don't think it was midnight, but it was like 11. And it's just too late for a surgery to be on screen in front of me that big. It's too late.
And then you have to do a sleep cycle afterwards, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
There's no
I'm good. But I
recovery.
love the movie though.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, moving on to the Blair Witch Project. Um,
I'm a super fan of this film. I've watched every behind the scenes thing. I own a book about their whole journey in the woods.
oh yeah.
I am I am a super fan of this film.
Okay. Okay.
Um and so like what is actually on the screen for this film, I still find a lot of comfort in this film just because I love it so much. But like what's on the screen isn't the best movie in the world. But what I think because of all the knowledge I have about the film and how it was made and how they had to fight to make it and they fought to get it into festivals and just like it was like the little movie that could, you know? And I think that's why I that happens a lot with me, whereas I'll be invested in a film enough to learn about it, and then it becomes one of my favorite movies simply because I know more about it. But I still, even with what's on the screen, it's genuinely dreadful. Even though you never see it anything at all, the amount of tension that they were able to build is like malleable. You could cut that shit with a knife. That's hard to do.
Well, you've never been on a camping trip with me. That's what I say.
I've been camping, but not
Now, I've been
recently.
glamping or camping.
No,
Oh,
camping,
camping.
actual
Okay.
camping.
All right.
Yes, I have gone actual camping, sleeping in a tent, all growing up and into a couple times in my college years. I went with my girlfriends, like my roommates,
Yeah.
um, but but I have not since. So I probably haven't since I was like 20, and
Okay.
it will probably stay that way.
As someone who has lived in tents before and just had to deal with what, like in the army, we call it the suck. Okay, so
Oh,
what the suck is it's raining you're camping. You've got an air assault. Well, they're called air assault tents. They're made out of canvas. So if you have any kind of droop in the canvas, you're going to get dripped on, right? That there's water that collects there. Just the full misery of being in the wood. That's what Blair Witch Project means to me.
And that's what they were doing. They really were full misery.
Yes.
Like they were acting, but not really.
Right. Still had a story behind it, but yet sticking to the story, but yet probably feeling it 100%.
Yeah, because they didn't know what was coming. They were given prompts
Oh, okay.
about their characters, but they did not. There was no. Well, they didn't have a script.
Gotcha.
It was very, very, very minimally scripted, and so the guys that made it would give them prompts about their characters, and that was it.
Okay.
It would be like, Mike, you threw the map into the river, but nobody else knows that.
Okay.
Like these were genuine reactions,
Or
and then when they're in
you're
the
going
woods,
to disappear tonight, and then tomorrow,
yes,
everyone's going to react.
And they didn't even know that was gonna. They didn't know that he was gonna disappear, and he didn't even know. They said they woke him up in the middle of the night and was like, "We're going." Like, they really had no idea, and so
it really does sound like
in
the
the
Army
middle
now.
of the night. Yes, and so it really adds to it,
really
knowing
does
that
sound
their
like that.
reactions were they were actually scared out there. They knew that they were surrounded and that they were safe,
Right.
but they were actually pretty scared out there because they didn't have any way of knowing what was going to happen. So like when they came to the woods and started like hitting the tent with their hands, it's supposed to be like the children's hands. They didn't know that was going to happen. They legitimately just ran out the tent. like they were just scared
What
stupid.
is going on? Is this an animal? What is it? Okay.
Yeah, that could have been real danger, like that would have been really scary.
That's one I'll have to look at behind the scenes. Because
yeah, they have some really, really cool behind the scenes stuff out there. One of them is called The Curse of Blair Witch, and I think it's on one of the streaming platforms, but I'll have to share with you the book that I have because I think it's called 8 Days in the Woods.
Yeah.
And it goes from pre-production all the way to international release. It spans the whole timeline, and it's got pictures. It was such a fun book to read, honestly.
Awesome. That sounds good.
Yeah, so that's for me. It's just I love the concept of it, and you'll never be able to do that again.
Right? And people have tried. Well, people have tried to copy that, right? Because that was just to me, the Blair Witch Project to me was a lottery ticket, right? This worked. This was a brand new concept that nobody's really ever thought of. You know what I mean? Like just that kind of out of the blue, and then now we've got thousands of copycats that are going to try and reproduce this.
And there were a handful of found footage movies, like maybe 3 or 4 prior to Blair Witch, but none of them were able to capture what Blair Witch really did. Because they came at it from a totally different perspective, which there is no script. You guys know who your characters are, you know what your prompts are, you know what you're supposed to do, but only on a daily basis. Whereas a lot of the other ones, they were scripted, or they were like Cannibal Holocaust and The Last Broadcast are like almost mockumentary style. And then the McPherson tapes, I think, came out maybe a decade before Blair Witch, and it's straight up found footage. And it accomplished is kind of what Blair Witch did, except they went ahead and showed the aliens, and it was terrible. And that was their mistake, I think. I was on board with the movie and the tenseness of it, but it was not. They showed the alien, and it looked like an alien, like
a gray
looked
alien,
like a little green man.
A little gray. Okay. So which kind of
it was
kind of leads into the.
They tried.
Yeah, it kind of leads into the behind the mask rise of Leslie Vernon. I checked that one out the other day. I watched it. And that one kind of does the same thing though, right? Like it kind of brings in a little bit of that style, but then a little bit of this is the new. I don't know if I'd compare him to Michael Myers or to what's his name, Freddy. But that's the thing that I kind of got from that movie is that you know what I mean, and maybe a little bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre too.
Oh yeah.
But that's kind of where that what I got. That's kind of my impression from that one. Not a lot of special effects. I didn't like, blood, murder,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But so, what was your main attraction to that movie?
So Behind the Mask, I'm a huge fan of found footage mockumentary.
Right.
So I found this movie out of the blue because Amazon Prime kept pushing it on me, and I'm like, okay, fine. Like, if I'm gonna like it, great, fantastic. So I finally watched it, and I'm like, I was offended that nobody had ever told me about it, that I had never heard of it before. And this was, I don't remember, I think it was like 2017 or 2018 maybe that I found it, and it had come out 10 years prior to that. I think it's 2007. And so just the fact that it's from the serial killer's perspective. I'm a big fan of like Dexter, the show Dexter as well.
Right.
And I think that this kind of captures that as well, but it's letting that fourth wall down. And there's a filmmaker straight up asking to be let in on this serial killer's life. And that just is so interesting to me. Not a lot of movies do from the serial killer's perspective. And then on top of it, have that double layer of, oh, we're going to bring the fourth wall down. And now you're a part of the narrative as the filmmaker. Like Maniac did that. That was from the perspective. Henry did that. Like there's a lot of films that go back and are from the perspective of the killer, but not in a comedic, very film driven way. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Like there's
yeah.
like I just loved that there was a filmmaker who was interested, and it also lives in our universe. They mentioned Freddie and Michael.
Right.
And being one of the greats kind of things.
Yeah.
And there's lots of fun cameos, and just it was made for somebody like me who loves meta horror. Like I want to know that this movie happens in my reality, and it is happening in my reality.
Right.
He's being compared to Freddie and Michael and Jason and the greats, quote.
Yeah.
So that one from get-go, it was attractive to me. I was gonna love it. I loved it for the first 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm in. And then I had the honor of meeting Nathan Basil, who plays Leslie Vernon. Cool. Yeah, he was at a con that we went to in 2020 before lockdown, and he was a joy. And it brings him so much joy to talk about this film that he didn't even have a line. This poor man. He stood and talked to us for like 20 minutes, and I kept like looking around like, are you still cool talking to us? Like, I mean, I'm good talking to you, but like,
don't you have like a panel to show up for, or I mean, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
And
though.
I think that the movie hadn't even found really an audience. I tell everybody who loves horror to watch it, so I hope it's found a bigger audience. But he was talking to us like, oh, I would love to do a sequel one day, because the ending is ambiguous, and so I would love that for him. But yeah, it's a super fun movie, and that's how I like my horror. I like my horror to be fun. I don't want to feel extra stressed out, I just like the funness of it.
Yeah, but to me, the stress during the movie is the best part is the release when you walk out.
That's true.
Because then you're like, and this jumps out of the horror genre, but like the probably campiest superhero movie is Superman, right, with Chris Reeves.
Yeah.
And I know people and kids of today won't have that feeling, right? But when you left that theater as at age 5 to 10, you thought people could fly at that point. Like that was
you were pumped up.
You were pumped, man. You were like,
yeah.
I mean, we had kids jumping off of roofs thinking, no, if I just think hard enough that I can do this, it's going to happen.
Oh no.
There were one stories, so it wasn't that bad.
That's good.
Yeah, it was just a one story. Which kids are, I think about my being a kid, and then like even an 18-year-old kid, and then going into the Army. The stuff that I did when I was a kid, I was like, no big deal. When I got to the Army at 30, I was like, oh, now I know what my dad was feeling. Now I know what he was feeling. Right. So back to, let's see. So we've got kind of covered Seed of Chucky. let's just recap on that one. So your main,
Yeah,
like I said, I took assumptions in some of it.
sure.
But what's your recap on it, and what's your
I Yeah. So I saw the first Chucky I ever saw was the third one, which is the military school. And I loved it as a kid. It was probably on TV a lot, I think is my guess. Because my parents weren't renting that movie for me exactly. So I think it was on TV a lot. And I fell in love with it. And so then later on, when Bride of Chucky came out, I was in love with it. When Seed of Chucky came out, I didn't see it until a little bit later because I don't think I even knew it came out because before social media, it was all just word of mouth. And I don't think Seed of Chucky got like the biggest release of all time. I think it was, an international release, but it kind of I think was a flop for the most part. I think it went too far in the comedy region for a lot of people and what they expected from Don Mancini and the franchise. But for me, it had actually, like we talked briefly about it earlier, it had nothing to do with like the gender aspect. Because when I saw this, it was before college. I didn't even know I knew I was queer, but like I didn't have any verbiage about it yet because it's not something you learn in high school. That's something you learn in college and once you're out in the real world. So like I didn't realize how ahead of the time Seed of Chucky really was because they have this non-binary child that needs to decide what
needs
gender
to
they
decide
are.
which one you
They
want?
I don't love that they play it off as Jekyll and Hyde. I don't love
Oh,
that.
okay.
But for the sake of the conflict in the movie, it works fine. I don't love that they had to villainize half of the non-binary person, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there had to be an evil one and a good one kind of thing.
Yeah.
But again, even so, it was before its time. And I think I loved it because it starts out so serious and you think you're going to get like a serious movie because it starts out like so bloody and then it's again meta horror is my go-to. So then you realize, oh, he's not killing Santa Claus. They're filming a Chucky movie. And also, I think this one of the more standout things for me in that film is are the special effects. Tony Gardner's own head, uh, like being a part of one of those things is Jennifer Tilly picks up the head and she's like, "Oh, this is so real. This looks so real." And then realizing, "Oh, it is real." Like I love the dichotomy of how scary it really would be
Right.
to see a killer doll killing somebody,
Yeah. And
but
then
then also the stupidness
right.
of how really stupid. It's a fucking stupid doll killing people. Like and her being so obsessed with Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah.
So I loved how stupid it was, but also there are genuinely like scary parts of it too. Like some of the kills, like the John Waters kill, sticks in my head
Yeah.
really, really well when they kill
Yes.
John Waters
Yeah.
in that one. So for me, it's kind of an overarching tone. I love the physical effects, not physics, practical effects, same thing. Um, and just overall, I love where they took the story because then after that, it got serious again, and that's not my favorite version of Chucky.
Okay. It turned into kind of a family drama a little bit too. You know what I mean? Like you had mentioned
The
with
next one did, yeah.
well, even just within the Chucky trying to pull Glenn to more of a male role,
That's true.
and
Yeah.
you know then the Glenda being pulled to the other. I mean, it's like,
Hmm.
and then yeah, I did agree that I didn't necessarily like the fact that there was dual personality in there, and then as it
Hmm.
flipped to Glenda, um, that was the bad one. Even though, but Glenn
Yeah.
did some killing too, so it was like,
Yeah. They're both either way, both personalities, which I think is a really interesting commentary on nobody was talking about what it meant to be trans or non-binary at that time. This movie is over 20 years old. So that
well,
conversation was barely scratching the surface.
what he
Just
did. So
barely.
the director did say that he pulled from Ed Wood's Glenn and Glenda. That's where he got the
Oh,
name.
okay.
That's where he got the names
Yes.
from for that character.
That makes sense. I've seen Ed Wood once, so I did not remember that.
Yeah.
Uh, But yeah, I love that. And I hate that that one of them has to be more villainized than the other. But even so, uh, I'm cheating a little bit because I'm involving the rest of the franchise. But I've watched everything. I'm caught up with the series and everything. And what they did to with Glenn and Glenda in the series kind of uh, apologizes.
Oh, okay.
There is a more evil one because what happens in the series, spoilers, what happens in the series is that Glenda, Glenn and Glenda get to have separate bodies and they're identical twins and they both get to present separately. It's actually one actress
Oh,
who
okay.
is, I think, actually, she might be trans now that I'm saying this. She's either trans mask, maybe non binary. I cannot recall. But it's one actress who gets to play both Glenn and Glenda, and they present differently, but they still kind of did the one's more evil
Mm,
than the other, but it was just like one was more devious,
gotcha.
if that makes sense. Like
Okay.
one was the more devious risk taking one, and one was just like shy, very quick to like go introverted kind of thing. Um, and then in the end of that storyline, they end up going back into one body. They go back into the doll.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. They choose to go back into the doll and they go overseas back to London, which is where they would have been, which is where in from Seed of Chucky was where they were raised. So
Oh,
it
that's
was
why the.
almost a little bit of an
Yeah.
apology, like a redo on Glenn and Glenda. And I think that seeing where Glenn and Glenda end up actually contextualized the original film for me a little bit. But but yeah, I love the whole franchise. Chucky might be my favorite franchise of all time. Can you tell?
Yes. 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 You've got a skateboard in your most of your background that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a gift. Yeah, and it says Erin on the bottom in like little blocks, like the play blocks,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
stacking. It was a gift from an artist friend that actually we'll be seeing tomorrow,
Cool.
for my birthday this year. So yeah, you could say that Chucky might be one of my favorite people
Yeah.
of all time.
Cool. No, that's definitely hints in your background there.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, and then the one that I had questions on,
Yeah.
the
It wasn't
sixth.
Seed of Chucky that you had questions
No,
on.
that wasn't the one. The Sixth Sense. Was that one just because it was intense, or so? What's your take on that one, and why does that make your list?
So this was hard. This was, I think I told you, making a top five was so hard. It probably still
Yes,
would have been hard to make a top 10, but I had to make a few really interesting
and
points
I
here.
I took the good
Um,
ones first, so uh,
yeah. I mean,
coming
those
up
are
with
all wonderful. I
yeah.
considered putting Alien Resurrection on my list. So that
Okay,
would have been like
so then we could have yeah
the only
yeah
crossover.
right
And I considered Exorcist 3 as well. So that's really
okay
interesting. Yeah. Um, but yeah, The Sixth Sense. Like I saw this one in theaters, which I was too young. I probably shouldn't have seen this one in
mm,
theaters. But I adored it, and I didn't know who Bruce Willis was. Like I was like 10 or 11 when this movie came out. Um, and so again, it goes back to like you seeing The Exorcist when you were a kid, or you
right
seeing Jaws when you were a teenager, kind of thing.
yeah
Like I saw this when I was legitimately like 10 or 11, and it scared me a bit. But the one thing I'll say is that my parents did let me watch almost whatever, within reason, whatever I felt like I wanted to watch. But my
okay
dad would then go with what he could do was we'd rent it on VHS and he would slow it down frame by frame so he could show me the prosthetics and
oh
show me
okay
like okay, like let's break it down. There's nothing to be scared here.
right
This is probably foam and it's fake blood, and he would go through and kind of show me frame by frame like how movie magic tricked me into being scared,
right.
which helped me a lot. Didn't save the fact that I saw it in theaters.
Well, and then the other thing is you kind of get pulled into this, you know what I mean? Like when you're watching it continuously, movie,
Yes.
you get pulled in, like I get pulled into the story big time. Like,
No, you're immersed. Yeah,
yeah, you're
yeah.
totally immersed. Like, girlfriends or wife or whatever that has been in my past have been like, try to talk to me during the movie and get upset because I'm not answering. I'm like,
I
I don't
that
even
happens to me as well.
but I don't even know that they're talking to me because I'm that immersed
Right.
into the movie, right? And then when those jump scares come, they hit me, right?
Yeah,
Um,
because you were so immersed.
right. And the only thing that makes me cry is puppies or a dog or animal something. You know what I mean? Like that dramatic animal
Yeah.
dying scene. That's the only
And
tearjerker
see,
for me.
of all these movies, The Sixth Sense is the only one that made me cry, and it's that I had lost both grandparents, well, both of my
Hmm.
mother's parents, both maternal grandparents I had lost within a couple years of seeing this. And so you already probably know what I'm going to say
Yeah.
is that the mother is trying to communicate with her mother at the grave, and Haley Joel Osment's little character is like, she hears you, blah blah blah. She wants me to tell you
Right.
this thing, and like, Tony Collette just breaks down sobbing in the
Yeah.
car because the grandmother has answered her question to the little kid at the grave. Like, it's so touching, and there's so many really beautiful moments in this movie. And then obviously the twist, if you haven't seen The Sixth Sense by now, I'm
I was
not
gonna
going to
say I
spoil
don't
it, I
think at this point
guess.
there's a spoiler to this one.
I don't. It's over 20 years old. Like, go watch it if you haven't seen it. Like, I'm such a huge fan of M. Night Shyamalan's filmmaking. What a way to just like come out like,
Right.
oh, like
Yeah.
running, with this first, like it wasn't his first feature film, but it was his first like horror film. But I, it's just got such a heart, and because I was a kid when I saw it, I related to the kid.
Right.
And now when I rewatch it, I relate to the mother. And it's like to be in this situation with your kid who's seriously either sick or experiencing something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love that I
Well,
got to
even
experience watching it as
even
a kid.
Bruce Willis's wife, though, right? Like here, you think
Hmm.
they're going through a divorce, and she's
Right.
just not, acknowledging him, and you know, like she's getting ready to cheat on him, and he's finding things
Right.
out, and why is this door? Why is she hidden behind this door? Why is this door locked? And all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
then at the
Yeah.
end, when it's revealed, that he's dead, then you're like, then it's like, oh my gosh, she's dealing with his death, right?
Yep.
But that is
And
that to me, that one's not a tearjerker.
but I've
But
only the ending, not so much as a tearjerker for me. It's just that one moment in the car
yeah,
with the mom. That's really the biggest tearjerker for me because it's just so hard. Toni Collette is such a brilliant actress.
yeah,
She's
she's
so
yeah.
brilliant.
I think
So
I
like
also was
she
the
just
first one I
sells
saw
those
her.
tears. Like, oh my God. Um, but yeah, the human elements of this movie I think are what sells it for me. Not the effects, not the jump scares, because there's like maybe 5 jump scares in this movie that are pretty good, honestly. But the human element of these people dealing with grief in different ways. And nobody knows, nobody's communicating in this movie. Like, it's actually really frustrating to watch sometimes for me because nobody's communicating. But you can't really blame them either. What's the kid supposed to say
Right.
until
Yeah.
he finally says it?
Right.
Like, what's he supposed to say to his mom? She's never going to believe that he doesn't even understand he sees dead people. Like,
Exactly.
I don't think he
Yeah.
understands that he sees dead
Well,
people
I mean, he
until the
doesn't even
doctor.
he doesn't even realize it, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
whole Bruce Willis thing. Is he's here,
Yeah.
he's communicating with him and getting therapy, right?
He's
That's
getting therapy from a dead person who's
from
telling him, the
right.
dead person is telling him to ask what the dead people want, which is the
Yeah.
best. I just love it so much.
Yeah.
And I think I just, it's going to go down in history for me as one of my favorites of all time. It probably could have
Okay.
made the top one spot, to be honest, but like, it was hard because such a fan of M. Night Shyamalan in general. I'm just a
Okay,
huge fan of
so I
his
gotta ask this
filmmaking.
then. The Village.
Hmm.
Okay,
Oh, I love it.
you love The Village? Okay.
I do. I do
Okay.
love, I actually love everything that I've ever seen him do. I didn't go out of my way to see the Avatar Last Airbender because I know that
Mm,
that wasn't him as a creator. That was just
right.
something he was hired to. So
Yeah.
that's not a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
But like his other 10 films,
Which I will say the new
whatever.
Netflix Avatar is pretty good.
I've heard this.
It's
I've
pretty
heard
good.
this
Yeah,
actually.
it's
I've
it
actually been told I should watch it.
yeah, I mean if you were disappointed with the movie, the Netflix version it's better. I think it's better cast. I think it's just goes well, it's Netflix, right? So they can go in deeper, right? Like they
Hmm.
can't they're not just trying to put it into an hour 2 hour film. They can do
Yeah.
an hour episode and really deep.
Yeah, and I heard that the script was just a mess for that movie that they made, and that M. Night had no creative control at all. Like, I think everybody was upset with that experience, and it goes down in history as like one of the worst movies ever made. Like, so I think the standards are pretty low, but I'm glad to hear that it's better.
I think it's a little better, but then again, you're like you said, you're coming off the trauma of, well, that movie one was horrible. What's this gonna be like?
Yeah. Right. And that was almost 15 years ago that movie came out.
Right.
Like, people are still scarred by that movie, I think. But
I think it was the
people
expectation,
also,
though.
yeah, the expectation, and like it being M. Night Shyamalan, who has this great track record, and then it was nothing, like what they thought.
Well, it's like the Dragon Ball Z movie. I mean, it was like,
yes,
what is this? Why? This is nothing. This is nothing like what we need, what we're expecting.
And yeah, I think that also goes back to like anything M. Night Shyamalan does. Unfortunately, he set his expectations. He set people's expectations so high with Sixth Sense and Signs. And
well, I would say
The Village.
I would say Unbreakable, Split, and what was the other one? Glass.
Glass, yeah.
I love those movies. Those are those movies to me.
Glass felt a little bit like, let's wrap it up in a pretty bow for the ending. Like, I wasn't super happy with the ending. It didn't feel very M. Night Shyamalan to me.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't normally wrap things up in a pretty bow.
Yeah. But it kind of had a twist too, right? Like,
yeah,
to find out that they were actually tracking, you know what I mean? Like tracking these people with special abilities and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it kind of goes like into an X-Men kind of
a little
realm,
bit. Yeah,
which is okay. I don't mind that. But yeah, like The Village is, I actually genuinely loved it. I loved the reveal at the end.
Okay.
The only one that like, I actually like Lady in the Water. I like Devil. I like The Visit. The only one that's like, obviously also goes down in history as bad movie is The Happening.
Yes.
Yeah. But I like it. I like the idea. It was executed so well, but the casting was so bad. I was going to say,
is that the fault of Mark Wahlberg? Is that the?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Wahlberg and Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah.
Are the leads that they cast in that movie.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of the movie. It's quite disturbing and well done, but the acting wasn't good.
Well, it could have been worse. They could have put The
it.
Rock in there. It could have been worse.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, we need an action star. Let's get The Rock. Let's put him in there. I love The Rock and what Rock does, but that's not.
Although the wrestler dude was not in Knock at the Cabin, the newest M. Night Shyamalan film. Batista, and he killed it. He's a good actor, though.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's a good actor.
Yeah, he's a pretty good actor.
And even though M. Night didn't write that film, it was a book adaptation. I still really enjoyed it. I didn't know what the hell it was going. Have you seen that one?
I've seen part of it. I think I was watching it at a friend's house, and then I had to go, but I didn't get to see the rest of it.
Yeah, it's worth finishing if you haven't yet, because you're really not sure whether these people are telling the truth. It's almost like Cabin in the Woods, the ending of Cabin in the Woods. Like, Sigourney Weaver comes up and is like, "You did it. Like, you got to kill her if you want the world to go back to how it was supposed to be. Like, sorry about it." And that's actually kind of what happens at the end of Knock at the Cabin. You're like, are these people telling the truth or not? And it's left a little bit ambiguous, but just ambiguous enough to know that I think they were telling the truth. So I thought it was an interesting film, actually.
Okay.
And same with Old too. Again, I'm just a huge M. Night Shyamalan fan. I really liked Old. The whole world didn't like Old, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
You like the twist at the end. That's the one thing I will give him credit for.
I enjoy a plot twist.
Is whether it's good or bad, the twist at the end is usually, that's the one thing I hate about movies is that I can usually guess the ending about halfway in. Yeah. So to be able to throw that twist in there that, I would have never, but then also that's why I don't like the Stephen King movies, because he's got this great story all the way up to the end, and it's just like a giant spider. What? Why? Why is it a giant spider? That doesn't make any sense.
I know.
That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, okay. So, the one that we have not talked a lot about is Jaws.
Jaws, yeah.
I know that to you at your age, when you probably saw it, it was like, why are they? There's a rubber shark, right? It's a. It's.
I mean,
I can see this.
I mean, I will say I enjoy the practical effects. They did a good job on those practical effects. I mean, I haven't watched it super recently, but I've watched it in the last probably 5 years. But I didn't actually cringe too much. I really didn't feel like it was too bad. I thought it was pretty convincing. I mean, I see why people were scared shitless by it.
I think it was more though when you didn't see the shark, right? Once they revealed the shark attack in the boat, that was kind of, to me, that was okay, it's a rubber shark. But
right, when
like
it kind of
even just
up.
the opening scene though, where she's swimming out there and something grabs her and pulls her down, that is every surfer's nightmare, right there.
Yeah, the tug.
The tug.
Yeah, and you see it on her face too. She's like, "What was that?"
Yeah.
Like, your heart drops for her in that moment.
Yeah,
and it is scary.
Yeah, well, and I've been that surfer on that surfboard, looking down and seeing it. You know what I mean? Like seeing that. Now there's no great whites in Florida, but like I've seen bull sharks and I've seen tiger sharks and I've seen some other kind of up close. And it's never been a goal of mine to jump in a cage with a giant shark in the water. That's just, to me, that's a dumb white person thing. You know what I mean? That's like
yeah, I agree.
It's like that's just not something. Oh, let's wrestle alligators, or let's wrestle a bear, or let's wrestle. Let's get in the water with sharks. No, I'm good. That's their territory. Now, I will say that the humans have made some major accomplishments. Like, and I won't even call them accomplishments, just stuff that you're like, that used to happen. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. We used to get in these long boats and hunt gigantic fish.
Yeah.
Right? Take a giant harpoon and hunt a giant fish.
Spear, yeah.
Right? Or we would grab a spear and go into the water where these things live and dominate, and major fishing, right? That kind of stuff. So there's stuff that we've done that as humans we're like, okay, that's incredible. But then, and I think even leading into, there's another movie called Orca that kind of shows, okay, if you're scared of this great white shark thing, orcas kill great white sharks. You know what I mean? So this is the thing to be scared of. This is the intelligent creature in the ocean that can kill us.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? But back to the Jaws thing. Yeah, swimming pools, lakes, bathtubs were all trauma. Like it.
I think you and Trish definitely agree on this. Trish doesn't like the water. So the best part is her mother's obsessed with shark movies.
Yeah.
So her mother will watch
like shark movies or Shark Week or just sharks.
All of it.
All of it.
Okay. Sharks. She'll watch all the shark movies, every Sharknado, any shark movie that exists. And Trish is like traumatized because she doesn't want to go in open water. Yeah, her mom has shark stuff all over her backyard. Huh? Like, we live in Michigan.
I know. Okay? I was gonna say, like, it's kind of.
She has shark decor everywhere. Like, she loves sharks. And so it's so funny because Trish is very much like you in that way. She was traumatized by maybe not even specifically Jaws, but
some sort
like
of
open water type movies,
Right, 30 feet down.
Like even like Lake Placid like kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what is below the surface?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I do know the difference. Well, and when I grew up, around age 12, my mom decided we were going to be kind of gypsies and we're going to go camping.
Mm.
So one of the places that we one of the places that we went was the Everglades, right? So dumb tourists that we are, we set up our tents pretty much right there on the swamp, right, like right there, so we can hear all the night noises and bugs and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And well, one night we had something dig underneath our tent, not even thinking about alligators, crocodiles, anything like that. So, which ended up being just an armadillo. But
Oh, well, that's good.
but still, there's just the idea, like you mentioned, Lake Placid, just the idea that there could, I mean, a gator could have come up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
There's nothing stopping
nothing
it.
stopping it. Nope, you're right there.
That's scary, though.
And well, like I said, you think about it now, and it's like, oh, that was pretty dumb. Probably could have died there, but we didn't.
Yeah. But I understand like why, people were traumatized by Jaws
Right.
though.
Yeah.
Like it's not terribly scary for me, but I think if I lived in a place where oceans were readily available, I probably would have been pretty freaked out.
Mm,
Because all we really have, here are man-made ponds and a couple lakes,
right.
and we don't live anywhere near like a swimmable lake. All the lakes that are near us are very polluted, and you don't exactly go.
True.
There's no beaches.
Even
You
drinking,
know what I mean?
just
Like,
drinking the tap water is not a good idea. I'm
yeah,
swimming in a.
yeah. So you have to go quite up north or inland and go find a nice beach, a nice lake beach. So like, it never occurred for me to even be scared of what's in the water.
Right.
Because I was like, believe it or not, I was an adventurous kid. I like to catch bugs and I like to pick up frogs, and I don't. I would never guess that I'm like that. I don't know why I was like that. I like I'm not particularly gonna just go pick up a frog now. Like, but I was like that when I was a kid. So I wasn't scared of nothing. Like, except for
Yeah.
maybe ghosts, but not like real things because I knew that there were no sharks. But I think again that was because my parents were very quick to be like,
Location.
yeah, the location mattered for me. I'm nowhere near an ocean. We're not going to come across sharks here in Michigan. So my parents were very quick to tell me anything that, if this is an unfounded fear, here's why you're not going to run into a shark while we're on vacation up north, kind of thing.
True. True.
So it's a little different. Location does matter in this case.
Which I will say was kind of a dumb fear too, because, living in Florida, you're told don't go swimming in the lakes, don't go play by the canals, don't do any of that kind of stuff, right? Because there are gators there.
Mm-hmm.
But no problem swimming in the intercoastals, no problem swimming in the open ocean. You know what I mean? Like, just the whole, what's our logic here? Oh, there's bigger fish out here. Okay, then, being just in the intercoastals and freshwater, and
Mm-hmm.
even some of the freshwater fish get pretty big. But yeah, I would have to agree that it's got to be a locational thing. But I will say that even with Jaws, there was some swimming pools. You know what I mean? Like you're just kind of leaning back, and then that fear kind of rolls in of dun 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 dun, and you're just like, okay, I'm getting up. Okay, I'm done. I'm done swimming now. Done. I'm
That
done.
score though wasn't up to scare you.
Yes, that's the thing, right? And I think that's the scariest part of every movie is got to be the music, the score.
Yeah.
Right? If the music can create enough intensity, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna be
Yeah.
drawn right into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that even goes for like the Howling. We haven't gotten
Yep.
into
Too much of the
Werewolf in
Howling.
London yet, really, but the Howlings, because I'm like fresh off watching it,
Yeah.
like the composition, the soundtrack for that was really interesting because they used all the Howling, literally.
Yes.
Like there was never a better title for this movie
Right.
other than the Howling. Also, I just want to be Marsha when I grow up. Can I please just be Marsha when I grow up? She's so hot. I had to Google this poor actress because she died a long time ago. Because I was like, man, I want to watch her and everything she ever did. But she only was in like 5, 6 movies because she died pretty young. She died at like 46.
Okay.
But man, she was a really interesting character for me. I really liked Marsha. But yeah, The Howling. I'm interested to hear. I know why I liked it, but I want to know like we haven't really gotten into like why that one particularly like made your list. And I want
Yeah.
to know why that one and American Werewolf made your list.
So yeah, so like I don't know what monsters you played when you were a kid, or you know what I mean, like
Mhm.
if you dressed up in Halloween or any of that kind of stuff. But mine was
I
always
was always a
werewolves.
witch.
Well,
Oh, you were
obviously,
always a werewolf.
yeah, obviously I've got some kind of gene in there that grows facial hair on a
Mm.
24. Like I can shave, and then this was my curse in the army was I would
Mhm.
shave, and then by 5:30 or 1700 or 1730, uh,
Yeah.
there'd be a sergeant major or an officer or something like, "Hey, you, did you shave today?" I'd be
You're
like,
like, "Yes.
"Yes,
Yes, sir, I
yes,
did."
yes, yes, I did. Yes, you wouldn't have let me. You wouldn't
Well,
have let me gone this far without without
they're
that
used to
morning
the
shave."
18-year-old boys who have a
Right.
trash
You
stash.
got
That's
yeah, you
why.
got 18-year-old boys that are in here that have like maybe a little bit in the front, might be able to grow some kind of goatee, but it's
Right.
going to look very shaggy from the Scooby
Mhm.
Doo series, right?
Yeah.
So and when I was young, um, we had a German Shepherd wolf,
Oh.
and his name was Rocky, and just the smartest, most protective dog that I've ever had, I've ever seen. Uh, he the number of neighbor kids that we got in fights with that got bit, I can't even
Uh-oh.
tell you. And of course, at the time, it wasn't a big thing to sue somebody for a dog
Right.
that bit somebody, or you just got bit by a dog. I mean, as long as it didn't have rabies, you're
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
But just my fascinations with werewolves at that, which it's obviously gone to skulls. But yeah, I think the first Halloween costume I ever had was they had these back in the day. They had these like you could buy a kit, and it was a latex mask in the kit that was kind of cut out around the eyes were cut out, and the mouth was cut out, so that you would just put that latex piece on, so you had the dog nose, and then you would paint it
Oh.
in with makeup and hair. My mom was at one point was like what are they called, makeup artist.
Yeah.
So she knew how to put in like fake hair and all that kind of stuff. So that was always and we were wild. We were wild kids. We were just constantly running wild kids. So
I love that though.
when I saw the when I saw the Howling, that was the first one I saw. When I saw the Howling, I was like, I belong in one of those packs. I'm pretty sure.
So that was the first werewolf movie you ever saw.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
That makes so much sense.
besides like Michael Landon, Teenage Werewolf, maybe. I think I may
Yeah.
have seen that, but you know what I mean. Like those
That one was
transformations were
campier though.
well, those there was 1960s something like that. Those transformations were, hey, we're going to take a picture of you here, add some stuff, take a picture of you here, add
Mhm.
some stuff, take a picture of you here. Whereas American Werewolf and Howling was the first transformation, right? Like
Mhm.
stretching of skin, stretching of bones, stretching of this. This is the difference between a
Mhm.
a wolf and a human, right? So if
Yeah.
there's this going to be this transformation, and even a transformation back into, and then I would say the big one, of course, was the American Werewolf in London. That one was the like to see the
Mhm.
full thing, right? To see the hand stretch out, to see the
Yep.
hair grow and the eyes change and all that kind of stuff, right? Like that one was more. That one was like the one, right? That was the one like this is the most incredible transformation I've ever seen, right?
Yeah, it's very cool. And I just recently watched American Werewolf in London too because I had seen it quite a long time ago, like when I was in college at some point, but I watched it before we had this list discussion. So I had recently watched it in the last couple months and I forgot how like deadpan funny it is. like the humor in it is really interesting. Like I
Right.
wouldn't call it like people are like, "Oh, it's one of the greatest horror comedies of all time." But it's not the same as like saying, Seed
Well,
of Chucky and
yeah.
Cabin in the Woods are horror comedies
Or
too.
even Evil
But it
Dead,
was
right? Like
so
Evil Dead has that
yeah.
had Bruce Campbell comedic timing in it.
Yes.
And then a couple of the scenes that are just like major jump scares, like when he wakes up in the hospital, and she's
Hmm.
helping him or treating him in the hospital, and he wakes up in the hospital, and he's in that transformation form, about to transform to kill her. You know what I mean? Like those are like to me, and then of course to see the werewolf running as
Hmm.
this giant wolf through London, right? That
Yeah.
to me was like, oh, this is the ultimate transformation here, right? This is it.
Yeah. It's such a cool movie. And I love the end. Well, I love and hate the ending. It's such a bad ending, but I think that was the point.
Right.
It's so bleak.
Yeah.
It's like the whole point of the movie, I feel like. And I feel like that is like the icing on top of how it's comedic. Like is that it was all for naught. Like I remembered a lot of the movie when I watched it, but I had forgotten how it ended. And like you're getting to the ending and you're like, well, there's only like 5 minutes left of this movie. How is this gonna end?
How are
And
they
then
going
it
to
just
throw this
ends.
together? Yeah. Well, it kind
And,
of it kind of does though. It kind of like she exposes it though, right? Like, but then of
yeah,
course nobody's going to believe it. It's on TV,
right.
right? It's
Yeah.
sensationalism on TV and special effects or whatever. But yeah, I kind of I like the ending, and then well, like you said, the hamburger credits. That's it.
Hamburger.
That's how every movie
I
needs to end is with hamburger credits.
I I love credits like that. That is something I didn't know about myself until more recently. I love when the credits have something rolling in the background. There's no cut of anything. And Leslie Vernon has a credit scene like that. What's another? Pearl has a credit scene like that. There's some really really strong credit scenes where there's no cutaway. It's just something happening behind the scenes. Behind I'm sorry, behind the credits,
Yeah.
and it just never cuts away until the ending. It finally blurs as the burger is done, and I'm like, God damn it! Now I want a burger. Like, why we had to like that? It was supposed to make me not want a burger, I think,
I don't
but
know.
it made me
I
want a
think
burger.
maybe it. I don't know. I'm. Like I said, I wanted to be part of the pack, so I
Right.
would say yeah.
I mean, I want to be Marsha's friend. I mean, like that burger wasn't for Marsha also because that was not a rare burger. I
No,
was like,
that
I
was
don't know who
not.
this burger is
Yeah,
for.
no.
That's not
A
Marsha's
rare
burger, but I
burger would have been flame broiled and thrown on a plate. That's pretty much it.
yep.
So
That's what I was waiting for. I was like, why is the burger like this is how
why
my
are we
brain
smashing
works.
a burger on a grill? That's not how you make one.
That's exactly what my brain thought when she ordered the burger and then they show the burger and I'm like, you need to get it off this grill. What are you doing? Like
Flip it,
like
flip it
that's
twice,
how
and throw
stupid.
it on a plate, and it's good. Um,
Yeah. But there was nothing else funny about the Howling, I will say.
no,
I thoroughly enjoyed it and it really kicks off too. About I love that she's a news anchor. Like that was probably one of my favorite werewolf movies I've seen, and I'm making my way through a whole list of werewolf movies this year. So that's
okay,
like I'm super happy to watch that one because it's been on my list for ages. So I loved it. So it's really cool that that's like the first one that made like an impression on you.
yeah, it's
Like it's cool to know.
well, and it was the first one that I saw boobies in too. So
Oh,
that
that's
was,
true. There were a lot of boobies in there. A lot of
of course,
boobies.
the '80s. That's just what they did, right? What
It
is
was,
it?
and it,
What's the relevance of this in this movie? None really. Just we have to have some
I
kind
kind
of.
of disagree with you actually,
You think?
because yeah, I do kind of disagree because they're feral,
Hmm.
and so most of the time I would agree with you.
Okay.
I would 100% agree. Nudity only distracts
Right.
a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's just a ploy for people to go, oh, boobies, and that's it.
Right.
But
Well, like
I feel like
the
because
Friday
it
the
was
13th stuff.
feral.
Yeah, but that's like I'm referring more to like the Friday the 13th stuff, right? And I
Yeah.
get it, right? Back to the cabin in the woods, right? One of the rules
Hmm.
is the promiscuous kids always get killed, right?
First.
That's
Yes.
first, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
there's two of them that run off to the woods or whatever. Those two are the first ones going to get it.
Hmm.
Um, But yeah, I don't know. And I guess because I grew up at that time where it's like, okay, seen them, yep. And we had to fight for it too. We really had to fight for it. Like we had to like either sneak downstairs during that scene, because we were, of course, at that time, parents were like, no, can't see the major violence and can't see the nudity, so you got to cover your eyes. Like we covered our eyes. We didn't cover our eyes.
Right, you were watching like this.
Yeah, we did like the Spock move. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And looking through.
Yeah.
We didn't. And then of course there's like I don't know. I know you probably didn't grow up like this, but there was always like a stack of Playboys in the bathroom. Like, okay.
Yeah, I did not grow up that way, but I mean, I know a lot of people who did. Like,
yeah,
it's not.
Well, you liked it for the articles. I mean, it was really for the articles.
Yeah, good reads for sure.
Which they did have some good articles. I mean, that was like the only way that you were going to hear, about Burt Reynolds or any of those stars back in the day. That was the only time, or major stars that had interviews. But
that's true. That's true.
Probably could have done it in Variety Fair or
that exactly
better format
like,
than
only the hottest people got their articles into Playboy. Let's be honest. Do you know what I mean? Like all of the other actors and actresses who were just like normal looking got into Vanity Fair and all the other ones, and People magazine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, I do think that the nudity was kind of relevant.
I think in one of the Howlings, I believe it is one of the Howlings. There is a six-breasted woman in one of them.
Oh.
Well, yeah, pups, right? So yeah.
Oh.
Gotta feed the pups.
I've seen chess pieces that are 3, but I've never seen 3. A chess because it must have been like 2, 2, 2.
Yeah, 2, 2, 2.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Which I mean, it depends on how you paint it. Could be a cow, could be wolf, right? Which I think
that's true. I'm gonna just have to Google it. I don't know that I want to watch any more of the Howling movies.
I wouldn't. That one's not, like I said. That one's quality of storyline and that kind of stuff is not. No, they, like I said, they're trying to do something shock worthy.
Yeah. Were there 3 Howling movies? Or were there more? Or I know there's 2.
I think there's a 3rd or 4th. Is there 4? That I gotta
and
look
are
up.
any of them worth watching? I really liked the first one, so I would totally watch more of them. I probably won't watch American Werewolf in Paris, though. I've heard that's pretty terrible.
It's not too bad. It's more underworld type. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like acceptance into this species now, right? Like you're now part of this. This is your life. Just like Jack Nicholson's Wolf, right?
Okay.
Have you seen that one?
I have, actually.
Okay.
That makes sense then. There might be a chance I might like it, actually.
You might like it. Yeah, you might like it. I was going to actually see, which we can talk about. What we can do is we can take some of these and we can go off onto our own tangents about the whole.
I already went off.
We kind of did. Yeah, we kind of did.
And M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. But we could do a whole podcast on just M. Night Shyamalan or Chucky or Exorcists or
werewolves in general.
Yeah, werewolves in general. Yeah.
I've seen so many werewolf movies now. There's still more that I need to see, but I've seen so many now.
Yeah. And there's, like you said, I do like, and I don't really consider it I don't consider it a horror movie, but Jack Nicholson's Wolf, that one is more of a, that one's a cool one too. Even though that like the full metamorphosis thing doesn't really happen all at once, kind of gradually happens.
It feels more like a character study.
Yeah, more like
than a horror film.
Yeah. The interesting thing is the villain in that is James Spader.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great villain in everything he's ever been in.
Right. Well, and then
Is he
even
ever
in the
not the villain?
last, I would say the last 5 roles that he's done, he's pulled some kind of villainous
Yeah.
role, right? Like he played Ultron in the Avengers. He
Mm-hmm.
Blacklist, right? That's one of my favorite
Yeah.
shows, The Blacklist.
I've never seen the Blacklist actually, but I've heard really good things about
Oh,
it.
it's definitely if you are willing to spend your entire life watching a movie series, that's the one. Because the way he manipulates them and does what he does, but you're kind of like, oh, he's a good guy, a little bit,
I hate that. I hate when villainous characters are written so well that you actually start sympathizing with
right?
them.
This
Like,
is this is okay. Okay. No, I would be on his side most likely. Yeah,
because, and that's the thing is like people, that's how real people are. There are shitty people in this world who are not just shitty people,
right.
who are manipulative. They're actually, they have good qualities about them too. So I think it's great when villains are written that way because it really makes you think. It's not just this is the bad guy and this is who you're supposed to be
Right.
disliking.
Yeah. Which I do like the movies where it is a black and white. This is the good guy. This is the bad guy. Whatever.
Hmm.
Because I do think there is that, but as I've said before, working for the government and being in the military and all that kind of stuff, there's a huge gray area in there
Hmm.
that you can't really say good or bad. These, I mean, like I think it's a point of view. I think it's a total point of view.
Yeah.
Where do I sit? Right? Where's my location?
Yeah.
Let's see. Did we cover pretty much? I think we covered most of the
I think
movies.
I think we did. Can you imagine if we had done top 10 lists? We're just going to have to come back and do another top 5. The next top
The
5.
next top 5. The
5 through 10 or 6 through 10.
right. This has been the Sugar Skulls podcast with Shane and Erin. Hope you'll join us on the next podcast and see you soon.